Harvard. And now we know that the EFCC has really been trying, because in a couple of weeks, months, we've always been seeing reports of them summoning maybe a past governor for questioning, uncovering properties, especially the largest that they said that they've discovered since the establishment recently. Although they said that they've not really attributed it to anyone, but court evidence, some court documents linked it to Governor Emir, the former CBN Governor Emefiele. But so far, if you are to look at it, how would you rate the fight against corruption in Nigeria? Maybe from the EFCC and ICPC. Let's first start with that.
Is that question for me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Is that right? Well, we see the fight against corruption has been there for quite a long time, showing that also corruption has been with us over a long period of time. The efforts are being made, but it looks like the more we fight, the less results we get, or the more corrupt we become. It therefore shows that it may not be the fighters of the corruption, it might be the system. And I've always insisted that the system we have in place doesn't allow results to be achieved. It doesn't even allow the fight to take up the ground. We just try to scratch it. But the anti-corruption fighters are trying their best within the limit of the resources available to them, including the enabling laws under an environment under which they are fighting. So to that extent, we could say there is war, there is fight, but the fight is not yielding enough result because we are getting more corrupt every day.
Okay, all right. And what about Adam Sabo? What is your take on so far how Nigeria has been tackling the fight against corruption? What are your thoughts,
thank you very much,
especially by our agencies?
I think, like the previous speaker has said, the issue has not been the agency responsible really in fighting corruption. The issue has been Nigerians. How much have we supported them, and how much have we policed them to carry out their job? That's one. Secondly, what has been the political will of subsequent governments each time they are in power in giving the agency the enabling environment to do that thing that they are supposed to do by providing them the necessary requirements and confidence that they require in them. And why Nigerians are saying that the results have not been commensurate with their expectations are the fact that so many high-profile cases have been left inconclusive for a very long time. You are aware of some people that they started their cases. Up to today, we don't know what is the outcome. Some of them are in government and even in previous governments. And so most of our successes have been about the street boys, because we can't allow our youth to get involved with it and eventually have no future. But there are big cases that we need to deal with for us to be taken seriously as a nation, especially the international community, to have confidence in us to come to our country to invest. Such cases are still pending. You can name them. If you look at the recent discovery, the 753 estates, if you ask me, I'll ask, how many of such estates are still, abound that you have not discovered? Or maybe we have discovered, we have not done something tangible. You remember the amount of money that was found at Ikoyi some years back. What was the end of that case? Or how did we conclude it? And so many cases like that. So we need to do so much for us to have confidence and for people to have confidence that we are fighting this war against corruption. I think these are the issues that we have, and we need to work on them.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that. So now to Nzewa Loman, the issue of inconclusive inconclusive cases. We've always been having this. This is like what we expect, especially when it comes to big people in political offices being tried. We hear of the case, it makes way for a while, and then later we just don't hear anything about it anymore. Is it always issue of not enough evidences to actually nail them? Because I think this is where we will be calling on your exes. Because what usually goes on, is it that they are not really doing enough to try to bring these people to justice, or is it that someone somewhere is trying to cover something up?
It's not actually that there are no evidence. Evidence could be there. The problem we have is the system. We defy the rule of natural justice. Our system allows the people, the most suspected people, the people that are holding on to power, holding on to the resources, also to be the people who were entrusted to fight corruption. Like somebody being a judge in his own case. You see where you have the president, and then the president is the person appointing the anti-graft agencies and their leadership. The president is the one appointing the judges and removing them at will. That's why I say the system is a problem. It's not even the current administration, it's just the system. And until we come back to that, where these institutions will maintain what we call independence, you cannot get results. You will always get, once you get to a point where an interested party, the same person you are investigating or you ought to investigate, is the matter ends there, the matter dies there. They don't have independence. So the mode of appointment of the head of these institutions matters a lot. And the reporting pattern matters a lot. The removal matters a lot. So we need to go back and rejig the system, both the anti-corruption system and even the judicial system, before you can get results. Otherwise, this result will continue like this. When you get to a point where you want to get results, it will touch a big head or a big fish. And that's the end of the road for you. You can't continue because you have touched an interested party. You have touched somebody who could remove you the next day and you are removed. You can see what happened sometime in 2019 when the chief of Nigeria was removed. And he remained removed, and that is the end of it all. Even after 4 or 5 years, the case came up and then he had been discharged. The damage can no longer be reversed. So we need to go back and see what system do we operate that empowers the people that are supposed to be investigated to be the ones appointing the leadership of those anti-graft agencies. Until we get to that point, we may not make any headway. We will to rigmarole, and then it becomes a vicious cycle from year to year out.
That there is no country in the world that is not corrupt. Even our advanced nation, the ones that even countries like Nigeria look up to when it comes to administration, they still fight corruption amidst them too. So if we are having cases like this on a global level, does it mean that we might be fighting a lost cause in Nigeria when it comes to tackling corruption?
I don't. Okay.
Can I come in?
Asked was there's this popular saying that there is corruption everywhere one goes in the world. So if we are having countries, or even countries like Nigeria, look up to that, they are still dealing with corruption. If we are to compare both big countries like around the world, the ones that Nigeria look up to are tackling corruption, then does it mean that fighting corruption in Nigeria must be a lost cause?
Can I come in?
I don't.
Yes.
Who are you driving the question?
Can I come in?
Okay, yes, please. Israel Aloman, please go
My
ahead.
opinion
Please.
about
It's okay, thank you. The issue is this: there is corruption everywhere. The difference between corruption in Nigeria and that of maybe other countries, particularly the developed countries, is people get corrupt in Nigeria and get away with it. Our system does not give room for deterrence. It could happen anywhere. It could happen in the US, it could happen in the UK, but if it happens, you'll be apprehended, and if you're apprehended, you'll be punished. Your position, it doesn't matter. Whether you are the president of the country, whether you are the prime minister, it doesn't matter. You have your office has to go down. You have to go down with your corruption. So, but here in Nigeria, there is no system in place. Even if you are caught, and there's nothing you can do, there is no deterrent. There is no form of punishment that could deter. That's the difference. If we have gotten a situation where we could prevent, we could. If we cannot prevent, we detect. If we detect, we punish. Then we will see that the fight about corruption or against corruption would be a total one. But here, we could only try to prevent if we can. We don't even try to prevent enough. And then we're dictating. If we're dictating, it touches a particular person or institution, then that ends it. That's the problem we are having. Well, our corruption fight is not total. And in as much as it's not total, it just means that there is no fight against corruption.
Can I add something to that?
Apologies for breaking the flow of thought, but we need to go on the commercial break right now. Please, so when we come back, we'll continue from where you stopped. Let's go on the commercial break right now. We are glad to have you back if you're just joining us. This is Firecrackers, and we're talking about curbing corruption in Nigeria. So before we went to that commercial break, Nzewa Lawman was telling us about how the fight against corruption in Nigeria might not completely be a lost cause. Could you please go ahead?
The system we have doesn't allow us opportunity to make the fight total. We cannot be sure of prevention because we need the corruption has it has angles, it has stages. We move from prevention down to dictation, down to deterrence, and whatever thing you have. But you discover that we have what check a system. What system gave somebody access to 753 buildings? What system that you have in place? It shows that there is no system. The system completely collapsed. It can't even be prevented. And the best form of fighting corruption is to prevent it. Now we don't have a system that could even prevent it. It happens. That's why you're talking about somebody talking about billions of naira, moving into trillions of naira, and the system could not even dictate it. So we must still come back to the point that for us to get it and say we are fighting corruption, we need to rejig our system so that we'll be able to dictate or prevent. If we cannot prevent, we dictate, and if we dictate, we punish or deter.
To the building. What are your thoughts about the fight against corruption in Nigeria? Do you think that it might be a lost cause? And if not, what are the tips and recommendations you would give to curb corruption in Nigeria?
I think we should first and foremost. I think we should first and foremost look at our system. Whether our system is designed to prevent corruption in the first place. Let us look at the state government and local government. For quite some time, particularly the present administration, has been trying to make the local government independent of the state government. And you can see up to now, the state governments are fighting tooth and nail not to allow local government to be independent. Why are they doing this? Because this is the only country you get allocation from the federal government, and they can just withdraw the whole money. The next thing you see them moving to the exchange, and the exchange public funds find itself in private accounts without any recourse to any system. This is the kind of system that we have, and how this kind of system prevent corruption. And that is why the politics of our country is so severe that people fight tooth and nail, because it's the only source that you can go and loot as much as you can without any serious consequences. Even our judicial system is in such a way that justice is not dispensed with the immediacy that it requires in dealing with people that are corrupt. So many things are wrong with our system. You are talking about there is corruption in advanced country. Which advanced country can they just dip their hands into public funds and then make away with it, and that's the end? They start investigation, and that will be the end. If you move from one party to the other, sometimes that's the end of your case. Where do you find that in those advanced countries? So we need to put the system in place. And until we are ready to do that, all the efforts we are making are just cosmetic. It's not something that can save this country. Okay, how can somebody in the first place? Because if we have to read the allegation about the 753, they said they are part of the, it is said that it's alleged anyway, that is part of the kickbacks that they get from allocating foreign exchange. The foreign exchange that will require for our industries and factories to operate, to create jobs for Nigerians and make us to produce and earn foreign exchange and make standard of living good for Nigerians. And that is what they decided to trade in. And there are so many of such that we have yet to detect. So the true thing about fighting corruption, like I said before, in this country, many things that we have to do. One, every government, every administration must have the willpower to deal with it, notwithstanding whether the people involved are with that administration also, because this is what has been happening over the years in previous administrations. And I think very few of them, I remember one administration that dealt with the former IG, I remember that. If we can make that our standard of living, our way of life, and our way of governance, it will be okay for us. But we are in this country, even ourselves, for goodness sake, even the youth whose futures are being mortgaged, when the public servant is accused, they will be the one to organize protests against the government agency that is investigating. Where do you find that in advanced countries that you want to compare Nigeria with? You can never. Even somebody whose future is being mortgaged and destroyed is the one coming to say, why did you do that? So until we organize ourselves, I know what is at stake with us. Because if you look at the money being lost to corruption, it is something that can bring this country to a level that every nation of the world will certainly be jealous of us, because we have developed to the required standard. But until we do that, every effort we are making will be cosmetics. We cannot in any way compare ourselves to how this thing is done in other countries, because their system does not even allow it, and their citizens will not even endure it in any way, because the kind of corruption that they have there are these Yahoo boys, you know, there and there. Is not somebody you want to give a government office the allocation belonging to a certain project, you put it in private account and you do away with it. We have heard of so many major projects. Is it electricity project? Is it water project? Bridge projects that the funds find themselves, and almost all these cases, their investigations and prosecution are inconclusive. For the past several years, decades, they are still there. They are as good as dead. So until we make effort to bring them alive, every other effort looks cosmetic.
Do you think that some amendment that is proposed to be done to the Constitution, do you think that might solve some of the problems we are having with corruption?
What is the amendment?
The 10th Assembly, they are already planning to do some amendments to the Constitution. So do you think that might probably help with this issue of corruption?
Now, let me say this. Whatever amendment you want to do to the Constitution, for instance, the autonomy for local governments, have you put anything in place that you checkmate that the governors will not have an arrangement with the local government chairman, because they will claim that they are the one that make them to win election, that they will not return the money back to them, in which the money will no longer be used for the masses that is intended? Is there anything? You must work that in. That is number one. Number two, whatever amendment that you want to make, is that amendment going to be in such a way that no case, if started, for instance, are we going to make a law that if you are accused of looting, you must not stand for any election in this country? If we can make that amendment, that is fantastic. But Nigerian will say, as long as you are not convicted, you can even be in prison and win election. Did we see that in other climes where their country is developed? So until those are the kind of amendments, they are not just cosmetic amendments. We should make amendments that the moment you are accused of public fund, you must not contest the election. You must not be given any public office. Those kind of amendments are the kind of ones that deter people. And secondly, corruption cases should have time limit within which it should be concluded, both investigation and prosecution. We should make sure that we work, along that line, and make sure that it works out, perfectly. But if we just let it loose, whatever amendment you make, Nigeria has a very cunning way of cutting short certain laws that they will make it very ineffective. But let me say this: until we are able to fight corruption to logical conclusion, the issue of development in this country will remain a mirage.
All right, thank you so much for that, sir. So lastly, before we leave this topic to go on to the next one, so this question is from Nzengwa Lawman. When it comes to the topic of corruption in Nigeria, we have people who say that greed might be the cause. We have some other people saying that the economic situation of the country too might be the cause. But if you look at it, it seems like everything is going in the same circle. We have greed, which make people corrupt, which causes scarce resources, and that in itself leads to economic problems, and then we have more people being corrupt to be able to get out of that economic problem. So how do we break out of this loop, this constant loop that it seems like the country is tied in when it comes to fighting corruption?
Pick my answers from the previous speech question that was put. I think that no amendment, first and foremost, no amendment to a constitution, to this current constitution, because number one is not even a constitution. It was decree number 24 of 1999 that was renamed a constitution. By its very nature, it's not even a constitution. So there's no number of amendments you can make to it that could give you result, and then you start fighting corruption from there. Why do I say this?
Exactly.
Now, are you going to tell the president the powers of because the executive has enormous powers? Are you going to tell them to amend whatever? If you are convicted of crime, if you are accused of crime, you will not be able to stand for election again. Then where are you going to pass it? Are you going to pass it in the church or in the mosque or in the same the National Assembly where our people, where the people are, where the lawmakers are? Politicians are the ones to amend. So they cannot amend something that will go against them. The only way out, as far as we are concerned, is to discard the current constitution. If we discard it completely, bring in a brand new constitution that puts everybody. When we talk about equality, everybody becomes equal before the law. For now, there is no equality before the law. We have the law for the rich, we have the law for the poor. And currently, it is the perpetrators that are appointing the anti-graft agencies and their chairman, their leadership. So I don't see any form, anywhere we could look at, except we throw away completely this particular constitution. And that is the solution. The question you're asking me, the solution is in throwing away completely the constitution. And then bringing a brand new constitution that will bring up equality, that will bring up fairness, that will bring up justice, where no man will be oppressed, no man, and no man will be the oppressor. For now, we have the oppressed, we have the oppressor, and the oppressed, or rather the oppressors, are the leadership. They are the leaders of, so to say, of the war against corruption. So how do we get result? It defies rule of natural justice. We cannot get any results.